The trading station at Kepler 442 hummed with activity as merchants from dozens of species hawked their wares in the central marketplace. Captain Sarah Chen moved through the crowd with practiced ease, her weathered hands checking the manifest on her datapad. The Terran Wanderer needed fresh supplies before the next jump, and this station offered the best prices in 3 sectors. She paused at a Vorthack ammunition dealer's stall, examining the gleaming railbolts displayed in neat rows. Each projectile was roughly the size of a human forearm, designed to punch through ship hulls at relativistic speeds. The dealer, a tall insectoid creature with 4 arms, clicked his mandibles in what passed for a smile among his kind.
Ah, Captain Chen.
Always a pleasure to serve Terra's finest.
These new Mark 7 railbolts can penetrate 3 meters of reinforced durasteel.
Perfect for your kind's aggressive trading methods.
Sarah smiled politely.
Humans had earned a reputation as formidable fighters, though she preferred to think of herself as a peaceful merchant. Still, in the lawless Outer Rim, reputation could be more valuable than armor plating. Just standard defensive rounds today, Clixer.
Nothing too fancy.
As she negotiated prices, a commotion erupted near the station's central plaza. Shouts echoed off the metallic walls as crowds scattered in all directions.
Sarah's hand instinctively moved to the plasma pistol at her hip as she scanned for threats.
Through the chaos, she spotted the source of the disturbance. A massive figure in crimson power armor strode through the marketplace, casually shoving aside anyone who didn't move fast enough. The armor bore the distinctive skull emblem of the Hegemony's Death Guard, an elite military unit known for their ruthless efficiency. The armored figure stopped at a small electronics stall run by an elderly Melody, one of the station's few permanent residents. The crystalline being's skin flickered through nervous color patterns as the Death Guard trooper loomed over his wares.
You, Crystal Face. I need a quantum communicator. Military grade. And, I need it now.
The Melody's voice chimed like wind bells. I have only civilian models, honored warrior. Perhaps the station's military supplier could have. The Death Guard's armored fist slammed into the stall's counter, sending delicate electronics tumbling to the floor. I don't have time for a shopping trip, alien. Give me what you have, or I'll take it from your corpse. Sarah felt her jaw clench. The Hegemony had grown increasingly aggressive in recent months, treating civilian stations like their personal supply depots. Technically, they were allies of the Terran Federation, but that alliance grew thinner with each act of brutality. The Melody's hands shook as he reached for a communication device.
Please, this is all I have. My family depends on these sales. Your family should have chosen a better profession.
The Death Guard trooper grabbed the device and tossed a handful of low-denomination credits onto the broken counter. It was barely a tenth of the device's value. Other merchants watched nervously, but none dared intervene.
Death Guard troopers were genetically enhanced supersoldiers, trained from birth for warfare.
Their armor could deflect most small arms fire, and their reflexes were enhanced by military-grade neural implants. Sarah watched the scene unfold, her merchant's mind calculating risks and consequences.
Getting involved would be stupid.
The smart play was to complete her business and leave before things escalated further. The Melody gathered the scattered credits with trembling hands, his skin cycling through deep blues and purples that indicated profound sadness among his people.
Thank you for your generosity, honored warrior.
The Death Guard trooper laughed, a harsh sound amplified by his armor's speakers.
Generosity?
I could have just killed you and taken it for free.
Be grateful I'm feeling charitable today.
Something cold settled in Sarah's stomach. She'd seen bullies before, but there was something particularly vile about watching a trained killer terrorize an elderly shopkeeper. The smart play suddenly seemed a lot less appealing. She stepped forward, her boots clicking on the station's metal grating.
Excuse me.
The Death Guard trooper turned, his helmet's red optical sensors focusing on her. Through the armored faceplate, she could see the outline of a human face, male, probably in his 30s, with the dead eyes of someone who'd killed too many people to count.
What do you want, merchant?
Sarah kept her voice level and professional.
I couldn't help but notice your payment method. On most civilized stations, destroying someone's property while robbing them is considered poor form.
The trooper's laugh was even harsher this time.
Civilized? Look around you, human.
This is the frontier. The strong take what they need, and the weak learn to accept it. Funny thing about strength, Sarah said, taking another step closer. In my experience, truly strong people don't need to prove it by picking on shopkeepers. The marketplace had gone completely silent. Even the station's background hum seemed muted as dozens of alien eyes focused on the confrontation. The Death Guard trooper's hand moved to the railgun mounted on his armor's shoulder.
You've got spine, I'll give you that.
But spine won't stop a railbolt from turning you into paste.
Walk away while you still can. Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it.
You know, I was just admiring those new Mark 7 railbolts.
Impressive weapons. 3 meters of durasteel penetration, according to the specs. Impressive indeed. More than enough to punch through whatever cheap armor you're wearing under that jacket. Oh, I'm not wearing any armor. Sarah's smile widened. Never saw the point. If someone wants to shoot me badly enough, they'll find a way.
But here's the thing about railbolts, they're fast, but they're not instant. Lightspeed targeting systems, sure, but the actual projectile?
That's just good old-fashioned kinetic energy. The trooper's finger hovered over his weapon's trigger. Physics lessons over, merchant. Last chance to walk away. I appreciate the warning. Really, I do. But I'm afraid I can't leave things like this. Sarah's stance shifted slightly, weight moving to the balls of her feet. You see, that melody over there?
He fixed my ship's navigation computer last year when I was stranded with a blown hyperdrive.
Wouldn't take payment, said he was happy to help a fellow traveler. Good people like that are hard to find out here.
Then, you should have made better friends. The Death Guard's railgun swiveled toward Sarah with mechanical precision.
Goodbye, merchant. The weapon fired. In the microsecond between the muzzle flash and the projectile's arrival, Sarah's enhanced reflexes kicked into overdrive.
Years of training in Earth's military academies had taught her to read the minute muscle tensions that preceded hostile action. She'd seen the trooper's finger tighten on the trigger and was already moving before the railbolt left the barrel.
But movement alone wouldn't have been enough.
The projectile traveled at nearly 2,000 meters per second, far too fast for human reflexes to avoid through conventional means. What saved Sarah was something no hegemony training manual could have prepared the trooper for: a lifetime of experience catching fastballs on Earth's sandlots, enhanced by the kind of hand-eye coordination that came from growing up in Luna City's variable gravity environment. As the railbolt streaked toward her center mass, Sarah's right hand snapped up with inhuman precision. Her fingers closed around the projectile's shaft just behind its aerodynamic tip, momentum carrying her backward as she absorbed the kinetic energy through her entire body. Pain shot up her arm as the impact stressed her enhanced bone structure to its limits, but her grip held firm. The marketplace erupted in shocked gasps and clicking sounds as dozens of alien throats expressed disbelief in their native tongues. Sarah straightened, rolling her shoulder to work out the impact shock, and examined the railbolt in her hand. Mark 7, just like the vendor said. Nice craftsmanship. Balanced weight distribution, efficient aerodynamics. She hefted the projectile like a javelin, testing its balance. You know what's interesting about human evolution? Our ancestors spent millions of years learning to throw rocks at things that wanted to eat them. Amazing what muscle memory can accomplish. The Death Guard trooper stared at her through his faceplate, his enhanced mind struggling to process what he'd just witnessed. That's impossible. No unaugmented human can catch a railbolt. Who said I was unaugmented? Sarah's eyes sparkled with dangerous humor. But you're right about one thing, it is impossible. Statistically speaking, anyway. About 1 chance in 10 million of timing it perfectly, assuming optimal conditions and a lifetime of training. She shifted her grip on the railbolt, drawing her arm back in a classic throwing stance. Of course, throwing it back? That's much easier. Simple physics, really. Force equals mass times acceleration, and this little beauty has plenty of mass. Wait, the trooper began, but Sarah was already in motion. Her arm whipped forward with the fluid grace of a professional pitcher, enhanced muscles providing acceleration that would have torn unmodified tendons apart. The railbolt left her hand at roughly the same velocity it had arrived, following a slightly different trajectory that would intersect with the Death Guard's center of mass. The trooper's enhanced reflexes kicked in, but his armor's bulk worked against him. He managed to twist partially aside, enough to avoid a lethal hit, but not enough to escape entirely. The railbolt punched through his armor's shoulder joint with a sound like ringing steel, spinning him around and sending him crashing into a nearby cargo crate.
Sarah dusted her hands off and walked over to where the trooper lay groaning.
She knelt beside him, noting the spreading pool of blue-green fluid that indicated damaged life support systems.
"Here's the thing about bullying people," she said conversationally. "Eventually, you run into someone who bullies back."
The Death Guard trooper's helmet display flickered as his damaged armor struggled to maintain life support. Through gritted teeth, he activated his emergency beacon, sending a distress signal to any hegemony forces in the sector. Sarah watched the telltale red light begin blinking on his shoulder pad. "Calling for backup?" she asked, settling into a crouch beside him.
"Smart move.
Though I should mention, response time to this station is usually about 4 hours.
Might want to get that shoulder looked at before then."
Around them, the marketplace slowly returned to life. The Melody shopkeeper approached hesitantly, his crystalline skin still cycling through nervous patterns. He carried a small medical kit, the kind used for emergency field repairs.
"Captain Chen? Perhaps I could assist? This unit's armor appears to have internal bleeding." Sarah nodded, helping the injured trooper sit upright against the cargo crate.
"Good thinking, friend.
Wouldn't want him bleeding out before his friends arrive."
The Death Guard tried to push her away with his good arm. "Don't need help from aliens. Pride's a luxury you can't afford right now," Sarah said firmly. "Your armor's compromised, and you're losing coolant fast.
Let him work."
As the Melody tended to the trooper's wounds, other merchants began gathering around. Sarah recognized several faces: a Zentari spice trader she'd bought from before, a pair of Korvax engineers who specialized in hyperdrive modifications, and old Marcus Webb, one of the few other human merchants who worked this route. Marcus whistled low as he examined the Railbolt entry wound.
"Sarah, girl, you've gone and done it now. That's Death Guard armor you just punched a hole through. The hegemony doesn't take kindly to their elite getting embarrassed." "The hegemony doesn't take kindly to a lot of things," Sarah replied. "But they understand strength. This trooper learned today that humans aren't as soft as they assumed." The Zentari spice trader, an elderly female named Vex, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Captain Chen speaks truth.
For too long, the Death Guard has taken what they pleased from honest merchants.
Perhaps it is time they learned respect." "Respect?" The wounded trooper laughed bitterly. "You think catching one lucky shot proves anything? The hegemony has fleets that could glass this entire system." Sarah stood, dusting off her knees. "Maybe they do. But they're not here right now.
What's here is you, bleeding through your fancy armor because you thought bullying shopkeepers was a safe hobby." She turned to address the gathered crowd. "I'm not trying to start a war here, folks. But I've seen what happens when good people stay silent while bullies run wild.
It doesn't end well for anyone."
The Korvax engineers, a mated pair named Tech and Bash, exchanged rapid clicks in their native language before Tech spoke up.
"The human shows wisdom.
Our people have a saying, the chain breaks at its weakest link, but it holds when all links stand together." "Pretty words," the Death Guard trooper spat. "But words won't protect you when Admiral Krex arrives with his battle group.
You've just signed this station's death warrant."
A new voice cut through the crowd.
"Actually, I don't think that will be necessary."
Everyone turned to see a figure approaching through the marketplace. She was tall and elegant, with the kind of bearing that suggested either nobility or military command. Her clothes were expensive but practical, and her eyes held the sharp intelligence of someone accustomed to making life or death decisions.
Sarah recognized her immediately. "Counselor Ames. I didn't expect to see you out here on the rim."
Dr. Elena Ames, senior member of the Terran Federation Council, smiled as she joined the group.
"Captain Chen.
Your reputation precedes you, though I must admit today's demonstration exceeded even the most colorful stories." The Death Guard trooper struggled to stand, his armor's servos whining in protest.
"Counselor Ames?
I demand that this merchant be arrested for assault on a hegemony officer."
Elena's expression remained politely neutral.
An interesting demand, considering that officer was engaged in armed robbery when the alleged assault occurred. I believe Terran law would classify Captain Chen's actions as defense of others.
Terran law has no jurisdiction here.
Actually, it does. Elena produced a datapad from her jacket. As of this morning, Kepler Station 442 has been granted protectorate status under the Terran Federation.
That makes this sovereign Terran territory, subject to Terran law and defended by the Terran fleet.
Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah felt her eyebrows rise. Terran protectorate status was rarely granted to independent stations, and never without significant political maneuvering.
That's impossible, the trooper insisted.
The hegemony has trade agreements with this station.
They can and they did. Elena's smile grew sharper.
The station council voted unanimously this morning, after reviewing security footage of Death Guard trading practices over the past 6 months.
Apparently, threats and extortion don't qualify as legitimate commerce under Federation standards.
She gestured toward the wounded trooper.
Which brings us to you, Sergeant Torres. Yes, I know your name.
I know your service record, your psychological profile, and your rather colorful disciplinary history. You're going to contact your superiors and inform them that you were injured in a training accident.
Nothing more. I won't lie to cover for these. Elena's voice hardened.
You'll do exactly as instructed, or I'll have you charged with extortion, assault, and violation of interstellar commerce law. The Federation has very clean prisons, Sergeant. You might find them a refreshing change from hegemony discipline.
Sarah watched the interplay with growing admiration.
Elena Ames had a reputation as one of the Federation's most skilled diplomats, but this was Sarah's first time seeing her work. The woman had somehow transformed a potentially explosive incident into a controlled political victory. Marcus Webb scratched his grizzled beard.
Counselor, with respect, the hegemony isn't going to take this lying down. Protectorate status or not, they'll push back. Let them, Elena replied calmly. The Terran Third Fleet is currently conducting exercises 2 systems over.
Admiral Chen, Captain Chen's brother, actually, would be delighted to receive a distress call from his sister's location.
Sarah blinked in surprise.
She hadn't mentioned her family connections, and Elena's casual revelation of that information sent a clear message to everyone present. The Federation knew exactly who was involved and was prepared to back their people. The wounded Death Guard trooper activated his armor's communication system with obvious reluctance.
Command, this is Sergeant Torres. I've been injured in a training incident. Requesting medical evacuation.
His radio crackled with static before a harsh voice responded. Torres, your beacon shows you're on Kepler Station.
What kind of training were you conducting there? Torres glanced at Elena, who nodded encouragingly. Equipment malfunction, sir.
Armor failure during routine maintenance.
No hostile contact. Understood. Medical transport departing now. Maintain position. Elena turned to the gathered merchants.
Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings, I believe we've resolved today's unpleasantness.
Normal commerce may resume.
As the crowd began to disperse, she approached Sarah privately.
Captain, might I have a word?
They walked to a quieter section of the marketplace, where Elena's polite facade dropped slightly.
That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've seen in years. Catching a railbolt barehanded? Even enhanced humans aren't supposed to be capable of that. Lucky timing, Sarah said modestly.
Luck had nothing to do with it.
Elena's eyes narrowed. I've read your file, Captain. Luna City Academy, top 10% of your class.
3 tours with the Reconnaissance Corps before you bought your ship. Officially, you're listed as having standard military enhancements.
Sarah remained silent, letting Elena continue. Unofficially, there are rumors about Project Nightingale. An experimental enhancement program that was supposedly cancelled after ethical review.
Enhanced reflexes, improved neural processing, accelerated healing.
The kind of modifications that might let someone catch a hypersonic projectile. Interesting theory, Sarah said carefully. Elena smiled. Indeed. Purely theoretical, of course. But, if such individuals existed, they might be valuable assets to the Federation. The kind of people we'd want representing human interests on the frontier. And, if they didn't exist? Then, we'd be very impressed by today's demonstration of human determination and skill. Elena handed her a data chip.
This contains a contract for exclusive trading rights in this sector. The Federation is always looking for reliable partners.
Sarah pocketed the chip. I'll consider it.
Please do. Though I suspect your decision has already been made. Elena glanced toward the wounded Death Guard trooper, who was being loaded onto a medical transport that had just arrived. Actions have consequences, Captain.
Today you showed the galaxy that humans don't kneel to bullies.
That's a message worth spreading. 3 weeks after the incident at Kepler Station, Sarah found herself docking at Meridian Prime, the hegemony's largest military installation in the Outer Rim. The massive space fortress bristled with weapons platforms and docking bays, home to over 50,000 military personnel from a dozen different species. She'd come here following a coded message from an old friend, though walking into the heart of hegemony space felt like volunteering for a firing squad. Security scanners probed her ship with invasive intensity before finally granting docking clearance. The station's interior reflected military efficiency over comfort. Gray corridors stretched between functional spaces, marked only by numerical designations and species-specific warning signs.
Sarah made her way through the maze, following directions to a cantina in the civilian quarter.
She found her contact at a corner table, nursing a glass of something blue and acidic. Commander Jack Harrison had served with her in the Reconnaissance Corps, back before politics and ambition had driven them onto different paths. He looked older now, with stress lines around his eyes and the kind of wariness that came from playing dangerous games.
Sarah.
He stood and embraced her briefly.
You look good. Merchant life agrees with you.
Better than I expected. She settled into the opposite chair, noting how Jack's eyes constantly scanned the room. Though I have to say, your invitation was unexpected.
Most people avoid me these days.
Jack laughed, but there was no humor in it.
Most people don't catch railbolts for sport. Do you have any idea what you've done?
The video feed from that station has been viewed by every intelligence service in known space.
Elena Ames suggested it might send a message. Oh, it sent a message all right. Just not the one the Federation was hoping for.
Jack leaned forward, lowering his voice.
The hegemony's military council has been in emergency session for 2 weeks. They're calling what you did a strategic threat demonstration.
Sarah frowned.
A what?
Think about it from their perspective. For decades, they've maintained military superiority through technological advantage and enhanced soldiers.
Their Death Guard troopers are the most feared infantry in the galaxy.
Then, a lone human merchant casually deflects their best weapons and injures an elite soldier.
It was hardly casual, that's not how the recording looks.
You caught that railbolt like you were fielding a lazy grounder.
No strain, no visible effort, just perfect timing and execution. Jack's expression grew grim. Every hegemony strategist is now asking the same question: if one human can do that, what can a trained human military unit accomplish?
The implications hit Sarah like a cold wind. They think the Federation has been hiding enhanced soldiers.
More than that. They think Project Nightingale was successful and operational. Admiral Krex has been pushing for preemptive strikes against Terran military installations.
Sarah felt her blood chill. Krex commanded the hegemony's third battle fleet, a collection of dreadnoughts and carriers capable of sterilizing entire planets. If he convinced the military council that humanity posed an existential threat.
Jack, you have to understand, I don't need to understand anything. I need you to disappear.
Jack slid a data packet across the table. New identity, clean ship registration, and coordinates for a safe sector outside both hegemony and Federation space.
Take it and run.
Sarah stared at the packet without touching it.
Running won't solve the problem. If the hegemony thinks the Federation is hiding super soldiers, they'll keep escalating until someone starts shooting. Then, let the politicians sort it out. You've done enough.
Have I? Sarah looked around the cantina, noting the mix of species present. Hegemony soldiers sat beside civilian contractors, alien merchants conducted business with military suppliers, and maintenance workers shared tables with off-duty officers.
Look at this place, Jack.
For all their faults, the hegemony brings different species together.
They've built something here.
Built on fear and conquest.
Maybe.
But, if they decide humanity is too dangerous to coexist with?
Sarah shook her head.
How many worlds get burned before cooler heads prevail?
Jack's jaw tightened.
What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that sometimes the best way to prevent a war is to demonstrate that nobody wins it. Sarah finally reached for the data packet, but instead of taking it, she pushed it back toward Jack.
Set up a meeting. A meeting? With who? Admiral Krex.
Tell him I want to discuss terms for my surrender. Jack stared at her like she'd suggested setting herself on fire.
Sarah, that's suicide. Krex didn't get his reputation by accepting surrenders. He kills threats.
Then, we'll see just how much of a threat he thinks I am.
Sarah stood, checking the time on her wrist display. I need to return to my ship. Give me 12 hours to make arrangements. Arrangements for what?
Sarah smiled, but her eyes held the same dangerous glint Jack remembered from their military days.
Insurance.
The Federation might think I'm just a merchant, but I still have friends in interesting places. She left Jack sitting at the table, staring at the untouched data packet. The walk back to her ship gave her time to think, and, by the time she reached her berth, she'd made her decision. The Terran Wanderer looked shabby compared to the military vessels surrounding it, but appearances could be deceiving. Sarah had spent years upgrading her ship's systems with the best civilian technology available, plus a few military modifications that weren't strictly legal in most systems. She activated her ship's secure communication array and sent a coded message to a very specific frequency. The reply came within minutes, a simple acknowledgement that her message had been received and understood.
The next call was more difficult.
Elena Ames answered personally, her face appearing on the main screen with diplomatic composure intact despite the early hour.
Captain Chen. I trust your recent travels have been profitable?
Profitable might not be the right word.
Elena, I need you to promise me something.
That depends on what you're asking.
Sarah took a deep breath. If things go badly in the next few hours, I need you to make sure the truth gets out. Project Nightingale was real, but it was never the massive program the hegemony thinks it was. Elena's expression sharpened. What are you planning?
I'm going to have a conversation with Admiral Krex.
He wants to know about human capabilities?
I'm going to show him exactly what one enhanced human can do.
Sarah, that's necessary.
Sarah's voice carried the kind of finality that ended arguments.
The hegemony is scared, Elena.
Scared enough to start a war that would kill billions. Sometimes the only way to calm a scared animal is to show it you're not actually a threat.
And sometimes it's to show them you're too dangerous to attack. Sarah smiled grimly. That works too. Either way, this ends with me.
She cut the connection before Elena could respond and began powering up her ship's weapons systems. The Terran Wanderer carried military-grade shields and a pair of plasma cannons that could punch through most armor. Against a hegemony battle fleet, they wouldn't amount to much, but Sarah wasn't planning to fight a fleet.
Her target was much more specific.
The communication console chimed with an incoming message from Jack. Admiral Krex had agreed to a meeting, though the terms made it clear he expected to be conducting an interrogation rather than a negotiation. Sarah was to dock with his flagship, the Iron Resolve, and submit to a full security screening.
Perfect.
Sarah began her pre-flight checklist, running through systems diagnostics with the methodical precision of someone who'd done this thousands of times. Everything showed green, from life support to weapons targeting. Her ship might look like a rusty freighter, but she was ready for war.
The docking approach to the Iron Resolve took 20 minutes, during which Sarah counted no fewer than 30 separate targeting locks from the Dreadnought's point defense systems.
They were taking no chances with their human visitor. The security screening was exactly as invasive as expected. Hegemony technicians confiscated her sidearm and subjected her to 3 different types of scan, including one that mapped her nervous system in uncomfortable detail. They found the enhanced bone density and modified muscle fibers that marked her as military augmented, but missed the more subtle neural modifications that were Project Nightingale's real innovation. Admiral Krex received her in his flag bridge, a cathedral-sized space dominated by tactical displays and command stations. The Admiral himself was an imposing figure, a hegemony primarch whose species had been genetically optimized for military command. 8 feet tall and built like a living fortress, he studied Sarah with eyes that had calculated the death of worlds.
Captain Chen. Your reputation precedes you. Admiral. Thank you for agreeing to meet.
Krex gestured to a chair positioned in front of his command throne. The symbolism was obvious, supplicant before judge. Sarah sat anyway, maintaining eye contact with the massive alien. I understand you wish to surrender yourself for crimes against the hegemony.
I wish to prevent a war that would benefit neither of our peoples. The Admiral's laugh was like grinding stone.
Wars benefit those who win them, Captain.
And, the hegemony always wins.
Admiral Krex stood from his command throne, his massive frame casting shadows across the bridge displays. The hegemony's strength comes from understanding our enemies, Captain Chen.
We know their capabilities, their weaknesses, their limits.
But, humanity has become an unknown variable. Sarah remained seated, projecting calm despite the dozens of armed guards surrounding her.
What would you like to know? Everything.
Krex began pacing, his heavy footsteps echoing through the bridge. Your species appeared on the galactic stage less than 2 centuries ago. Primitive chemical rockets, simple nuclear weapons, no genetic enhancement beyond basic medical treatment. We catalogued you as a minor threat, suitable for eventual absorption into our empire.
Flattering. Then, you began to change. Faster than any species in recorded history.
Advanced starships, energy weapons, genetic modifications that rival our own. Most concerning of all, individuals like yourself.
Krex stopped directly in front of Sarah. Tell me about Project Nightingale. Sarah met his gaze steadily. What makes you think I know anything about classified military programs? Because you demonstrate capabilities that should be impossible.
Enhanced reflexes, accelerated processing speed, perfect hand-eye coordination. Our analysts estimate you react approximately 3 times faster than baseline human norms.
Have you considered that maybe your analysts are wrong? Krex's expression hardened. Show me.
Before Sarah could ask what he meant, the Admiral drew his sidearm, a military-grade plasma pistol capable of burning through bulkhead steel. He aimed it directly at her chest and fired. Sarah's enhanced nervous system kicked into overdrive, slowing her perception of time to a crawl. She could see the plasma bolt forming in the weapon's barrel, could track its trajectory toward her heart. Her body moved without conscious thought, shifting sideways as her hand reached up to intercept the energy blast. But, this wasn't a solid railbolt that could be caught and redirected.
Plasma weapons fired superheated gas contained in a magnetic field, designed to burn through whatever they touched.
Sarah's modifications might give her superhuman reflexes, but they didn't make her invulnerable to energy weapons. Instead of trying to catch the bolt, she used her enhanced speed to do something even more impressive. Her hand moved in a precise arc, fingers trailing through the plasma's magnetic containment field at exactly the right angle to deflect its path. The energy bolt curved away from her body and struck a nearby bulkhead, leaving a smoking crater in the metal. The bridge fell completely silent. Even the background hum of ship systems seemed muted as everyone present processed what they'd just witnessed.
Admiral Krex slowly holstered his weapon. Remarkable.
Our combat specialists insisted that was impossible. Your combat specialists are probably very good at fighting conventional enemies. Sarah flexed her fingers, noting the slight burns where they'd contacted the plasma field.
Humans aren't conventional.
No, you're not.
Krex returned to his command throne, his tactical mind clearly reassessing everything he thought he knew about human capabilities. How many others like you exist? Sarah smiled.
That's the wrong question, Admiral.
Explain.
You're thinking in terms of supersoldiers and military programs. Enhanced individuals who could turn the tide of battles.
But Project Nightingale wasn't designed to create warriors. Krex frowned. Then, what was its purpose? Survival.
Sarah stood, moving to one of the bridge's tactical displays. The screen showed a star map of known space, with different colors indicating various species' territories.
Look at this map, Admiral. What do you see? Hegemony space in red, Federation territory in blue, independent systems in yellow.
I see something different. I see a galaxy where every major species has one thing in common: they're all older than humanity. The hegemony has existed for over 1,000 years.
The Korvax Confederation is 3,000 years old.
Even the youngest independent species had centuries to develop their technology and secure their place in the cosmic order.
Sarah touched the screen, highlighting Earth's position.
Humanity had 50 years. 50 years from our first satellite to our first starship. 50 years to go from isolated primitives to galactic players.
Do you know what the secret was? Enhanced development programs. Wrong again. The secret was realizing that we couldn't compete on equal terms. Sarah turned back to face Krex.
Every other species developed along predictable lines. Better technology, stronger military forces, more efficient government structures. But they all remained essentially what they had always been.
And humans? We chose to become something new.
Sarah's voice carried quiet pride.
Project Nightingale wasn't about creating super soldiers. It was about creating humans who could adapt to any challenge, overcome any obstacle, survive any threat.
Not through superior firepower, but through superior flexibility. Admiral Krex leaned forward, his predator's instincts engaged. You're describing an evolutionary leap.
Exactly. But here's what your analysts missed: we didn't do it to challenge the hegemony. We did it to coexist with you. Sarah gestured toward the viewports showing the vast starfield beyond.
There's room in this galaxy for all of us, but only if we're strong enough to earn our place.
Strength through adaptation rather than conquest. Now you're beginning to understand.
Krex was silent for a long moment, his strategic mind working through implications.
Finally, he spoke. How many enhanced humans are there? Fewer than you fear, more than you might hope. Project Nightingale was selective, choosing individuals who could handle the modifications without losing their essential humanity. We're not building an army, Admiral. We're building a future.
The massive alien stood again, but this time his posture suggested contemplation rather than threat. Your Federation's diplomatic messages speak of peaceful coexistence, but peaceful species don't develop enhancement programs. Peaceful species don't survive first contact with the hegemony, Sarah replied bluntly.
You've conquered or absorbed every minor species you've encountered for the past 5 centuries. Did you expect us to simply wait our turn? Krex's laugh held genuine respect this time.
No, I suppose I didn't.
But enhancement alone won't protect you if the hegemony decides humanity poses an existential threat. You're right. That's why I'm here. To surrender? Sarah shook her head.
To propose an alternative.
You want to test human capabilities? Fight one of us under controlled conditions? See exactly what your forces would face in open warfare? The Admiral's eyes narrowed. You're suggesting single combat. I'm suggesting a demonstration. Your best warrior against one enhanced human.
When your champion wins, as he undoubtedly will, you'll have proof that humanity isn't the threat you imagined.
When he loses. Sarah's smile turned predatory. Well, you'll have proof of something else entirely. Silence stretched across the bridge as Krex considered the proposal. His tactical display showed the positions of 3 battle fleets, all positioned for potential strikes against Federation worlds. A single demonstration could prevent the deaths of billions. What are your terms? He asked finally. Simple. Combat to incapacitation, not death.
Winner takes all. If I lose, the Federation withdraws from disputed territories and accepts hegemony oversight of human enhancement programs.
If I win, the hegemony recognizes humanity as an equal partner rather than a potential conquest. And your champion? Sarah's smile widened. You're looking at her. The bridge erupted in surprised murmurs from the assembled officers. Admiral Krex raised a hand for silence, studying Sarah with new interest.
Captain, you've already demonstrated remarkable abilities, but combat against a trained hegemony warrior is a different matter entirely. Our champions are genetically optimized killing machines, trained from birth for war.
I know. I've fought them before. When?
6 months ago, during the Cygnus incident. Your battle group attacked a Federation supply convoy, claiming they were carrying illegal weapons. 3 Death Guard troopers boarded my ship looking for evidence.
Krex's expression sharpened. The official report stated that boarding was unsuccessful due to technical failures. Technical failures. Sarah laughed. Is that what they called it?
The first trooper made it halfway through my cargo bay before I introduced him to the business end of a plasma torch. The second one managed to reach my bridge before discovering that enhanced reflexes work just as well in zero gravity. The third one was smart enough to retreat when he found his squadmates unconscious. The Admiral accessed his command interface, pulling up classified files. His expression grew increasingly grim as he read through the reports. 3 of my best soldiers, defeated by a single merchant.
They were good, Sarah admitted. But, they fought like they expected me to be a normal human. Pattern recognition is useful until your opponents stop following patterns. Krex closed the files and stood to his full imposing height. Very well, Captain Chen. You want a demonstration? You shall have one.
But, not against a common soldier.
He gestured toward a section of the bridge Sarah hadn't noticed before.
A weapons rack held an array of melee weapons from different worlds, swords, axes, energy blades, and stranger implements designed for non-human anatomy.
Choose your weapon, Captain.
You face me. The bridge fell dead silent. Several officers looked genuinely shocked. Admiral Krex was not merely a military commander but a legendary warrior who had earned his position through personal combat as much as strategic brilliance. Sarah walked to the weapons rack, examining her options. Energy blades would give her reach and cutting power, but they were unfamiliar. Traditional swords were too heavy for her enhanced speed advantage. She finally selected a pair of curved fighting knives, testing their balance and weight. Interesting choice, Krex observed, drawing his own weapon, a massive two-handed blade that seemed to absorb light rather than reflecting it. Most opponents choose larger weapons when facing me.
Most opponents aren't trying to prove a point about adaptation.
Sarah moved to the center of the bridge's open area, her stance fluid and ready.
Shall we begin? Admiral Krex nodded to his tactical officer, who activated a recording system that would capture every moment of the combat. Whatever happened next would be studied by strategists throughout the galaxy.
The Admiral raised his weapon and charged.